Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Yankees lose 2 of 3 to the Mets. We're on a 6-game losing streak, and it snaps as they win the final game of the series. So that's now 2 6-game losing streaks in a very short span. If you just go through the Saturday game against the Mets, they were just about maybe 6-16 or so in the last 22, somewhere in that range. You know, 2 different types of 6-game losing streaks. The one that included the Red Sox and Angels series, they could not hit. This against the Blue Jays and Mets, they didn't pitch. They didn't play really any defense, and just disappointing in different ways. But the other thing too, I mean, from a standings perspective, things have changed. Where I was talking for a while about, the Yankees and, like, what are the Tigers going to do? And, the Astros have just been unbeatable lately. So here's the thing. Let's talk about just loss column. Yankees are 7 back in the loss column of the Tigers and 6 back in the loss column of the Astros. Now, there's still a lot of games to go, right? The Yankees have played 90 games, and so there's 72 games left. But the Yankees are 3 games back on the AL East of the Toronto Blue Jays, which is nuts. But I think at one point they might have led Toronto by 8 games. The Blue Jays are on an 8-game winning streak. The Yankees are tied with the Rays for second place in the American League East, and thus tied with the Rays for the number 1 wild card spot. And they're only 1 game ahead of the Mariners, who come to town. And so those represent your 3 wild card teams right now. The whole playoff picture has just completely swung in a different direction. Where, and like I said, it's not even about the standings right now, but to paint a picture of how bad it's gotten, they're closer to missing the playoffs than they are to grabbing a top 2 spot, which would give you a bye. So just the outlook looks a lot worse. Really bad news on Clarke Schmidt. He is expected to undergo Tommy John surgery. So it didn't look good or sound good. The fact that he, left the Toronto game with right forearm tightness, and their worst hopes or worst fears were realized. And Clarke Schmidt, they'll be lucky if he comes back at all for the end of 2026. And then at that point, he'll just be under contract for 1 more year in 2027 before becoming a free agent. Really, really bad news. Considering the fact that he really was starting to come into his own. Clarke Schmidt is being one of the better starters in baseball. And, Garrett Cole's out for the season. Luis Gil, even if he does come back, who knows what you're getting? It just feels like a bit of a lost season for Luis Gil. Maybe not. Maybe he'll come back at just the right time, but a lot of moves need to be made by Brian Cashman at the deadline, because this team is currently constituted is going nowhere. The bullpen has been horrid. And again, the rotation right now as it stands, it's Max Fried, who officially has made the All-Star game. No surprise there. Joining Aaron Judge, and as well, Jazz Chisholm Jr., which is a nice surprise. Didn't really expect him to necessarily make it. But Jazz, those are going to be the 3 Yankee representatives as of now. A week and change till the All-Star game. There's always potential injury replacements and pitchers that take a seat based on when their rotation spot lines up. So that's what it is for now. Judge, Fried, and Chisholm Jr. But going back to the rotation, Fried, Carlos Rodón, who, not for nothing, he's been worse lately, and we'll talk about him. He had a poor game 2 against the Mets. Will Warren, who it's been a lot of good, but also when he's bad, he's really bad. Marcus Stroman, who now finds himself in a pretty cushy spot in the rotation, which is kind of scary, even though he's been okay since he's been back. And now it sounds like Cam Schlittler is going to slot into that open spot, vacated by Clarke Schmidt. And, Ryan Yarborough's out. We'll see when Yarborough's on the shelf, Gil's on the shelf. There's other depth in AAA that isn't very good, in the likes of like a Carlos Carrasco or Alan Winans. Those are just pure depth pieces. You hope that Cam Schlittler can surprise. He's put up some solid numbers in the minors. He is probably a top 10 Yankee prospect. I think that he is on some top 100 MLB lists for prospects. We saw him a good amount in spring training. Got some maybe 4 or 5 starts in spring. And it's kind of rose up the rankings over time. So it'll be exciting and nothing else. But again, on paper, that's pretty rough. The bullpen is in tough shape. We'll talk about Luke Weaver, who has really, really, really hit the skids. since he's been back from the injured list, and has really cost the Yankees game, sadly. And just certain guys are just being overused. Mark Leonard Jr. being one of them. I mean, he got off to a relatively solid start, and that's kind of gone by the wayside. We know Fernando Cruz is going to be out for a long time. Jonathan Wazga has been really nothing special or consistent since he's been back from the injured list. So the bullpen is really in shaky grounds, and then the lineup, they're scoring runs recently, and so I'm not going to make a big deal about that. Although there are some players that have been really truly horrific. I guess specifically Anthony Volpe really comes to mind, but it's more about the defense. The defense is really, really a problem. Whether you want to talk about look, Volpe himself is short. The second base, third base conundrum that's ridiculous, where Jazz should be playing second, and in fact, Jazz actually didn't play Game 3 because of a sore right shoulder, and we're still going to have him play third base, and he's not playing well. It just, I don't get it. Like, what is it to accommodate LeMahieu at second? Is it to increase versatility? Whatever it is, they got to stop with that. And then the outfield is a problem too, whether it be with Dominguez specifically. And look, he's made major strides offensively, but he's still a problem out there in left. But besides that too, just teams take the extra bases against the Yankees when it comes to a single turning into a double, stolen bases. We've seen a lot of catcher's interferences. It is a problem. And it just speaks to what we saw last year. And it has not improved. They tried to make it seem like it did. It really did. Now, look, in a world where you had Oswaldo, who had his struggles as well, when he was at third and Jazz was second, and Volpe was playing a little bit more of a crisp shortstop, at that time, you could basically say, okay, well, it's only Dominguez that's kind of a problem in left. And even then, he's not playing all that much. It brings me to the positive point, then we'll get into the series, as a whole. But Cody Bellinger makes an unbelievable, just a great play in Game 3 to basically save the game. Off the bat of Juan Soto, a shoestring catch and left, then he doubles off Lindor at first. Just one of the greatest plays you'll see in a really clutch situation. Cody Bellinger, after a slow start offensively, he was always doing well defensively and versatility-wise and hustle. But Cody, look, he's someone that, could have had a claim to making the All-Star team. There were probably bigger snubs before him, but like, for example, Julio Rodriguez making it, like, Cody Bellinger was certainly more worthy of him. However, there was probably more people ahead of Bellinger. Again, he got into a slow start, and that hurts a lot. I have found in these all-star selections, you get up to a slow start, even if you turn it around. It seems in the selection process it's tough to make it. But anyway, let's start from the top. And Game 1 really hurts. And Game 1, it's the classic Yankee loss that has killed them really all year long. When you look at a series and say, wow, Yankees could have easily won that series and maybe swept that series, or in the recent case of things, avoided a sweep. Marcus Stroman was not great, but he kept them in it. And it was a bullpen that messed up. It was, the Yankees really not doing enough offensively against weak met pitching in Game 1. And this was coming off of a 4-game losing streak. We lost 4 straight to the Blue Jays. So this one frustrated me a lot. Game 2 for different reasons, but Game 1 because it was right there for the taking for the Yankees. As far as the lineup was concerned, we would see Ben Rice on the bench and Trent Grisham on the bench, as well as Austin Wells. So Oscar caught, Dominguez let off, really because of the fact that Rice and Grisham weren't in. People made a big deal about it, and I get it. And Dominguez was very, very good in this game after coming off of a really good Blue Jays series. But I'm fine if you want to have him lead off, but I also, look, Grisham, he's been pretty good in leadoff spot as well. The leadoff spot hasn't really been a problem for the Yankees. So in order to get, Dominguez more confidence and better opportunity, I'm all for that. And I have no problem if they want to do that. At the same time, I'm not going to be up in arms about it if he is batting sixth. But in this game, he batted leadoff. And it, gets off to a really good start. But going to go to the pitching lines first. Oh, yeah, let's just, before we go there, let's discuss transactions. Clarke Schmidt, unsurprisingly, before the series begins, goes on the injured list. Clayton Beeter as well was sent down after his poor outing against the Blue Jays. So then that meant that Scott Efros back up and still here at the end of the series. And then Javian Sandridge, the lefty, makes his major league debut. It wasn't a good one in game 2, and then he got sent down after game 2. And then Jeff Hartley was put back on the roster. So it's really kind of a in and out sort of rotation for some back end guys that are random, admittedly. I mean, I think Scott Efros, there's a chance that he could stick, and he's looked kind of decent and maybe could work his way into somewhat of a leverage role. But again, Schmidt out, Beater down, Sandridge up and down, Efros up, and then Hartley up. So just kind of a rotation for the bullpen. Marcus Stroman goes 5 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts, and sign me up for that all day. Honestly, the fact that he gave you 5 innings and 3 runs, it's not great. It comes out to a 5.4 ERA, but if that's what he's going to give you, I'll sign up for that because my expectations for Stroman are very low. For the Mets, considering the fact that Paul Blackburn was hurt and he hadn't been doing well himself, Justin Hagenman would start for the Mets and not do very well. Gave up 3 homers, but, kind of hung in, I guess. 4 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, no walks, and 5 strikeouts. The Yankees go off to a great start against Hageman. Dominguez, leadoff homer, opposite field shot for Dominguez, the 7th of the year. Broke a long home run shot for Dominguez, I might add. Then Aaron Judge gets in on the act. Back-to-back homers, Judge's 32nd homer of the year. However, bottom of the first, a double by Brandon Nimmo that was misplayed by Jason Dominguez. This has got to be a catch. It goes over Dominguez's head. It shouldn't have. And that's a bad way to get started. And Juan Soto, who's been a lot better lately for the Mets and was shut down by the Yankee Stadium, he makes his presence felt in game 1. Game 1 was Soto's by far his best game as the Met versus the Yankees. He hits a 2-run shot off of Stroman, and a sort of a vintage Soto left center field run. 21st homer of the year, ties it right back up at 2 immediately. Bottom of the third, some more bad defense, and it was a 1-out double by Soto, and then an RBI single by Alonso off the glove of Volpe. If nothing else, Volpe has got to try to keep that in front of him. This could have been an out. And Anthony Volpe has been bad offensively and defensively. It goes down as a hit. RBI single Alonso makes it 3-2 Mets. But the Yankees come right back. Cody Bellinger, who has really been very good when you think about it against the Mets specifically, right? He was the star of that first series. And here, you walk out of this series, it's kind of feeling the same way for the Yankees. I mean, maybe that's a recency thing, but he does homer in game 1. His 13th homer of the year ties it up at 3. Then at the top of the 5th, Hagenman's out after allowing a single to DJ LeMahieu with 1 out, and Jason Dominguez greets Warren with a 2-run homer. 2nd homer of the game, 8th homer of the year, makes it 5-3. An underratedly big spot was Jazz Chisholm Jr. being up 2 on, 2 out, and he strikes out looking. Not great, because again, like with this bullpen, you're looking for more. Stroman gets the Yankees through 5. He does. And so we go to the bottom of the 6th. Ian Hamilton comes on, which isn't ideal. And remember, the Yankee bullpen was pretty taxed. It would appear as if Loaizaga was unavailable, and probably Ladder Jr. as well. I know Loaizaga had pitched a good amount the night before, so you were dealing with kind of a bit of a thinned out pen. Ian Hamilton had been decent leading into this, but with 1 out, Brett Beatty hits his 9th homer of the year to make it 5-4. And then Hamilton gives a hit to Mauricio. And so Tim Hill comes on, 2 on, 2 out. Kind of a funky play where Brandon Nimmo hits a ground ball to Jazz Chisholm Jr. A bad throw by Jazz. Again, he should not be at third base. But Roddy Mauricio, who really looked pretty awful as a base runner in this series, he thought the ball went into the outfield, but it was actually in LeMahieu's glove. Now, I think if they reviewed this play and Mauricio had stayed at second, I think he would have been safe. I think the throw pulled LeMahieu off. However, LeMahieu just tags out Mauricio because, again, he thought the ball went into the outfield. So the Yankees catch a break there, but Tim Hill still gets the job done. Brazaban comes on, and, Dominguez steals second with 2 out, but Cody Bellinger strikes out looking. And again, a little bit of another missed opportunity there for the Yanks. Then in the 7th, they take Tim Hill out with 2 out, no one out with Pete Alonso coming up, which makes sense. And this is a pure second guess, but the way this turns out sucks, because what would have been great is if you somehow, and look, maybe John Schneider would have done this, probably not, but maybe If Tim Hill somehow stayed in and just intentionally walked Pete Alonso, and then you had Hill versus McNeil lefty, that would have been pretty ideal. But what happens is Luke Weaver comes in, who's been bad lately, and he gave up a home run the night before to George Springer. It is a walk by Pete Alonso against Luke Weaver, which sets it up for Jeff McNeil. And it's another full count to McNeil, and McNeil hits a no doubt about it 2-run shot off of Weaver. This is the play of the game. This gives the Mets a 6-5 lead, which they would not relinquish, and a really bad job by Luke Weaver. And very unfortunate, again, it's not a fault as far as the pitching decision goes, it just sucks. Because I think Tim Hill was looking good, and the Mets seem, you look at things, especially in a relief situation, the Mets seem to have a little bit of struggles versus lefties. The way their lineup kind of goes. But Weaver gives it the big shot to McNeil at 6-5 Mets. And then Reed Garrett comes in. What I hadn't realized that Edwin Diaz was unavailable. Reed fucking Garrett, who had not been good lately, picks up a 6-out save. Stanton strikeout, Chisholm Jr. single, Goldschmidt pop out. Look, Goldie is amazing against lefties. He's not against righties. And I would have been fine pinch hitting for him, but they didn't. And I understand, Goldschmidt is a potential, future Hall of Famer. I get it. Ben Rice does pinch hit for Ascara, and Rice flies out. A nice 1-2-3 inning by Efros, down by 1 in the 8th, and then the 9th. It's still Garrett, and Trent Grisham pinch hits for Anthony Volpe, which is the first time Volpe's been pinch hit for the season. So that's good to see. The fact that they have acknowledged that they'll do that, and Grisham lines out to left. Then LeMahieu gets robbed by Jeff McNeil. Kind of a humpback sort of liner towards second, and McNeil just makes a really nice sort of scoop of the ball. And since LeMahieu doesn't have any speed, McNeil throws him out. Really a fantastic play. And then Dominguez, not very smart. I know he had done well in the game, but with Judge on deck, 3-1 count, he grounds out on a pitch that would have been ball 4. So a very typical but frustrating Yankee loss in game 1. Mets win 6-5. The Yankees almost, with Stroman on the mound, picked up the win, but didn't. And now you go to game 2, which if you look at it, game 2, Rodón versus Montas looks pretty good on paper. However, I knew that it would somehow go wrong, and Montas didn't really pitch all that well. Montas's final line is nothing special. I mean, he did give them length, and he didn't get killed. But it helps when you give him a lead. And Carlos Rodón shit the bed, flat out. Carlos Rodón loses to drop to 9-6, so he still has not gotten that 10th win. That's not all his fault. He basically, his last 2 tries, he should have gotten that 10th win. It was the bullpen that kind of failed him. This time it was him. 5 innings, 5 hits, 7 runs, 6 of those earned, 3 walks and 4 strikeouts for Rodón. For Montas, he picks up his first win as a Met. Goes to 1-1, 5 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, no walks, and 2 strikeouts for Frankie Montas. And from as far as the lineup went, bench wise, Goldschmidt on the bench, Stanton, and LeMahieu. So Peraza would get the start at second. Peraza would actually also start game 3 at third because Chisholm was out with that injury that I had said. But Grisham back into that leadoff spot. Dominguez in the 6th hole. But bottom of the first, Starling Marte double on a play that honestly, I don't know. Dominguez could have maybe caught this ball. I wish it was only a single, not a double. It was sloppy. It looked sloppy. Now, I don't know. Maybe if you have Bellinger out there, I suppose it could have been the same result. I just don't think it would have been. I don't. But anyway, then Lindor walks. Then Juan Soto sack bunt. I think he was trying to bunt for a hit, but still, Yankees kind of catch a break there, especially, Soto the way he's been hitting lately. And then Pete Alonso walks, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with that in that situation. Bases loaded, 1 out. Brandon Nimmo has been really, really good lately for the Mets. Hits a grand slam. 18th homer of the year, makes it 4-0. That was it right there. Yankees have not won a game when they've been down by 3 runs all season, so that wouldn't change on this day either. This was the most lopsided Met win. I mean, of the 3 Met wins in this Yankee-Met Subway Series this year, this was the one game that the Mets, they really had it the whole way. I look back at a couple of the other Met wins. Again, this game 1 here, and then game 2 Yankee Stadium. Those are games the Yankees had hanging in the balance, and did not get the job done. So the Mets have a 14 lead. I'm not even going to discuss, there was other fuck ups that were kind of inconsequential defensively in this inning. I'm not even going to go there. It included Wells throwing at Chisholm to throw out Marte, which nothing happened there. Dominguez making an easy catch look difficult. There was a Volpe ground out that, like, a bad throw that should have been easy. Second inning, though, Jazz Chisholm Jr., the All-Star, hits his 15th homer of the season to cut it to 4-1, but then the Mets get a run right back on a Chisholm error, a throwing error. He should not be playing third base. I don't know how many times I need to say that. He should be playing second. So he goes to second on the throwing error as well, Tyrone Taylor, that is, and then Starling Marte with an RBI single to make it 5-1 Mets. So that's an unearned run. Mets get a run right back. But then Austin Wells homers. His 12th homer of the year makes it 5-2. Then a weird play happens, I think, after the fourth. Anthony Volpe hits Aaron Judge with a throw. Yes. It can't get any worse for Anthony Volpe, right? Because he's not bad enough on the field. Basically, what happens is the fielders, they throw it around when the inning is over, and Volpe kind of, to an unsuspecting Judge, hits him right in the near the eye, the right eye. Judge was bleeding. There would be a bandage on his eye. He would be fine. No worse for wear, but kind of when it rains, it pours. And you also found out before this game that the Clarke Schmidt news came down before the second game as well. So let's go to the bottom of the fifth. And this was perplexing for me. Right around third, 2 out, I know that Nimmo hit a grand slam. I believe me, I get it. And I also acknowledge that Nimmo did single in this inning. But you got to pitch carefully to Pete Alonso in this spot. And Alonso makes him pay. Opposite field short homer. 19th homer of the year makes it 7-2. That took the wind out of their sails. The Yankees would make things interesting again, but that bothered me. We go to the sixth. A little bit of a Yankee rally going. Cody Bellinger actually gets a 2-run double. Cody Bellinger leaves this series with I believe, a 12-game hitting streak, I think is where the number's at, which is similar to where he was. He had a hitting streak around that as well, 13 games or so, maybe about a month ago, something like that. So, Bellinger really, he's been pretty consistent after that really slow first month or so. So 7-4 Mets at this point after the 2-run double. Richard Lovelady would come on to replace Montas, and Lovelady would get Chisholm to ground out to keep it at 7-4. Scott Ifrost with a 1-2-3-6. So he pitches back-to-back days. And then Volpe, who, the one thing he did do is he homered off of Lovelady. Volpe can hit lefties. He cannot hit righties. 10th homer for Volpe makes it 7-5. LeMahieu pinch hits for Peraza. They bring on Davinsky. LeMahieu singles. Soto actually almost threw him out at first, which was crazy, but LeMahieu beat it out. And then Grisham grounds out. So the Yankees cut it to 2, but they keep in Efros too long. And I understand the bullpen's a bit thinned out, but I just did not agree with doing that in that situation. Simply put, he had pitched yesterday. He pitched in the minors on Wednesday, and then he was ineffective. Double by Mauricio on a play that probably should have been a single, between Grisham and Judge. And then Francisco Lindor with an RBI single, and Trent Grit. Well, I'm wondering if it went down. I think it did go down as an RBI single, but Grisham bobbles the ball, goes off his glove, and so it allows Lindor to get to second. And if he makes that play, I don't know. Maybe you have a play at the plate. I'm not exactly sure, but it's another error for the Yankees. Makes it 8-5. And then Javian Sandridge makes his MLB debut. He walks Soto, and then he gives up a 3-run homer to Pete Alonso. So welcome to the majors, kid. That's tough. 11-5 Mets. Alonso, 2 homers there in pretty short order, right? 5 RBIs as well. So that makes it 11-5 Mets. Eventually, JT Brubaker comes on to finish out that inning for Sandridge in the 8th off of Ryan Stanek. The Yankees get an RBI double by Ben Rice to make it 11-6. They kind of made it a little bit interesting, but Dominguez and Volpe strike out. Off of Brubaker, you get a Juan Soto deep RBI single, make it 12-6. And then Edwin Diaz comes in a 6-run game, which was kind of interesting because he was unavailable day before. And he gets the job done. And that's win 12-6. So the Yankees at this point have lost the series. They've lost 6 straight. And now they're attempting to avoid the sweep, which they do in what was a very lopsided pitch matchup on paper. Although game 2 should have been, but game 3 even more so. Matt Fried picks up his 11th win, improves to 11-2. Wasn't the greatest outing for Fried. 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts to the Mets. Kind of the bullpen game between Chris Davinsky, Zach Pop, and Brandon Waddell. And it ends up being Pop who picks up the loss. He was pretty bad. It was actually his Met debut. They had just picked him up. He had been released. I want to say, I know he had been on the Mariners. I'm not sure if that was his most recent team. Might have been. Former Blue Jay as well, Zach Pop. But out of this lineup was Ben Rice, Jason Dominguez, and of course, Jazz Chisholm Jr., like I said, for that sore shoulder. I think he should be okay, though. I don't think it's anything long-term. Yankees get on the board first, and it would be Austin Wells, homering in back-to-back games. Davinsky had 2 scoreless innings. Pop comes in, and it's a home run for Wells, makes it 1-0 Yanks. Then in the 4th, Yankees get a couple more runs. With first and third and no out, Volpe with an RBI ground out makes it 2-0. And then eventually, off of Waddell, the lefty coming in, Austin Wells, when the first and third one spot, he gets an RBI ground out. So some solid contact made to make things happen, right? That's where not striking out helps. And again, doing some fundamentals. And that was a rare inning of that, where the Yankees were able to scrape out 2 runs that they didn't really do that much, right? You had a leadoff double by Stanton. After that, kind of bloops and infield hits and things of that sort. A steal. And then the top of the 5th, a perplexing decision by Mendoza. Leadoff double by Goldschmidt, of course, against the lefty. And then Grisham ground out moves Goldschmidt over to third. And they pitched the Judge. I just didn't understand that there. That was strange. I think Mendoza's pushed a lot of the right buttons. Not there, though. And Judge hits his 33rd homer of the year to make it 5-0. So he only trails Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh with 35 homers. He's still going strong, and Cal Raleigh's actually coming to town in this Mariners-Yankees series coming up at the stadium. So that'll be interesting. But 5-0 Yankees there. And then the bottom of the 5th is where things get a little bit dicey for Fried. With 1 out, it's a McNeil single on a play that LeMahieu, I wish he would make, but LeMahieu's got no range. Then a Hayden Sanger single, which is kind of rough. Starling Marte singles on a play that I guess Trent Grisham could have caught, but to me, more so, just bad base running by Jeff McNeil. He got kind of deked out by Grisham. Makes it bases loaded, 1 out, and then Francisco Lindor with kind of a seeing eye up the middle, past the dive of LeMahieu, 2-run single, make it 5-2. So now you got problems with the Yankees. However, Fried bounces back with striking out Soto and getting Alonso to fly out to keep it at 5-2. We go to the 6th, first pitch, Brandon Nimmo hit by pitch by Fried, and he's out. I didn't feel great about this, considering the Yankees needed 12 outs, and Fried was still at 98 pitches. So if it were me, I think I would have just let Fried stay in there, and now the Mets start using pinch hitters against Jonathan Loaizaga. It's a Mauricio single. It's a Brett Beatty single. Bases loaded, and 1 out. No, sorry. Bases loaded and no out. And Jeff McNeil gets an infield single on a bad play by Loaizaga. First, he can't field it cleanly. Then Goldschmidt tosses it to Loaizaga, and he can't make the catch. There could have been an error on Loaizaga here. They call it a single. It's now 5-3. Bases loaded, no out. And Mendoza decides to lead Hayden Sanger in there. He could have maybe gone to Torrens. Sanger with a 6-4-3 double play. And then Starling Marte lines out to Judge on a pretty nice diving play by Judge to hold it at 5-4. So the Yankees keep the lead barely. They get a big run in the 7th off of Brazaban. Goldschmidt single. Then a single by Grisham under the glove of Alonso makes it 1st and 3rd, no out. And then Judge with a sac fly. They decide to pitch to Judge, and it kind of hurts him again. Almost was a home run. Makes it 6-4 Yanks. Then in the 7th, Mark Leonard Jr. comes on, and he didn't look good, but this is where the play of the game happens. It's a hit by pitch by Lindor, and then an unbelievable catch by Cody Bellinger, robbing Juan Soto of what could have been, who knows. If Bellinger doesn't make that play, that could be like, at best for the Yankees, 2nd and 3rd, at worst, like maybe a runner on 3rd as the tying run on a run scores. That was a going for it. That was a risky play. And not only does he make the shoestring catch, but he throws Lindor out at first from left field. Just an impressive play by Cody Bellinger, and it gets Mark Leonard Jr. off the hook. Alonso then walks, and then Tim Hill gets the ground out of Brandon Nimmo. Tim Hill, is someone that he hasn't been great lately. Like, he hasn't been great. I feel like if you want to cookie cutter certain stats, but I don't know, certainly against lefties, I still feel pretty good about him against lefties, if nothing else. Let's go to the bottom of the 8th, and Tim Hill with Luke Weaver warming up leadoff single Mauricio, and then a really big double play. Paul Goldschmidt with a nice play on Brett Beatty, the ground ball, and then he tags out Mauricio. Again, not great base running by Mauricio. Big double play. So somewhat similar to the inning before, and then McNeil grounds out. So a big 4 outs by Tim Hill, and then the bottom of the ninth, Devin Williams comes on. We haven't seen much of Devin Williams. He did struggle in that one Toronto appearance, but overall he hasn't pitched much. He gets Luis Torrens to strike out looking on what was a bad call by the ump. Should not have been strike 3, but, Yanks catch a break. That ump was bad, John Bacon, pretty bad all game, and wasn't really great in the Yankees' favor either. Starling Marte grounds out, and then Francisco Lindor on a full count with Juan Soto on deck as the potential tying run. We don't get that moment because Francisco Lindor goes around. It looked kind of close to me, but Laz Diaz punches him out of third, and the Yankees hang on for the 6-4 win, avoid the sweep, snap the losing streak, and they needed that really, really badly. I'll tell you that. So now the Yankees will head home for a 6-game homestand before the All-Star break. These last 6 games before the All-Star game. And it starts out with 3 against the Seattle Mariners, who have really been pitching well. The Yankees did take 2 of 3 in Seattle, but this is pretty prime competition. Yankees are 1 game up at Seattle in the wild card race. It'll be Logan Gilbert against Will Warren. And I just want to see, in terms of that Yankee-Seattle series previously, the Yankees did not face Logan Gilbert then. As far as Will Warren was concerned, I believe that he did pitch in that Mariners series in Seattle. He did. He went 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts. So a very good outing for Will Warren, who's looking to bounce back after a Bama versus Toronto. Will Warren also is better at home. So just reasons for some optimism. Wednesday is listed as TBD, but it should be Cam Schlittler. And then for the Mariners, it is Logan Evans, who, decent ERA, not great strikeout numbers. He's made 8 starts. Don't know much about Logan Evans, but he's a rookie. So that's certainly a younger matchup in game 2. And then game 3, it'll be Brian Wu against Marcus Stroman. So this one, out of all of them, really feels the worst from a on paper matchup. Wu did well against the Yankees in Seattle, 6 1/3 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, and 6 strikeouts. So that one's a tough one. This is not going to be easy for the Yankees, but hopefully the bats have been pretty solid despite the losing streak, so hopefully that kind of remains true. And then the Yankees will have 3 games against the Cubs. So the road slate is done until the Yankees go to Atlanta in about a week and a half's time. Ironically, that's where the All-Star game is this year. But yeah, Yankees snap the 16 losing streak. They lose the series to the Mets, 2 of 3. But now they will head home for a 6-game homestand, which starts against the Seattle Mariners.